what I ultimately do is I help people create more freedom. And what that means is that, we all go into business or, we're all trying to make more money, but there's always something behind the money. It's never about the money. And what I found is that people are focused on the money and they're not focused enough on what the purpose is. So I took that service-based business that I'd gotten into and turned that into a training business. And so I was training people how to do the foreclosure cleanout business in a way that I had discovered to make it very profitable. And it just makes a huge difference in your business. And you stand out so far from the competition because so many people miss that one thing, the relationship. And that's the only way that you'll have a sustainable business that's successful.
Welcome back, or welcome to the Conscious Investor Podcast, the show where we talk about health, mindset, and wealth building strategies. The Conscious Investor Growth Summit, it's gone, it's over, and you missed out. I'm so sad for you, but there are still lots of really great opportunities for you just around the corner. So I wanted to just take a moment to let you know that I am launching the Wish Fulfillment Cohort. There will be 2 of them taking place, the first and the third Tuesdays or Thursdays of the month. These are 3-month cohorts designed to take you from your wish into reality. So if there's something that you have felt resistance with, that you are like, I cannot stand the struggle any longer, I need this to become reality, or I need to discover what that deeper desire and passion purpose is, this is for you. Okay, so lots of information. We'll put it down in the show notes. It'll probably say waitlist. You want to join that waitlist. Also, super special, but application based only is the Wishmaker Circle. And Wishmaker Circle is designed for those highly motivated individuals who are already bringing wishes to reality and they want to link arms with other highly motivated individuals who are, going out and slaying the dragons every single day and getting it done and being leaders of their life and in the world. Okay. So if that resonates with you, you want to apply to the Wishmaker Circle. Now, this is not a normal mastermind. This is very much not one of those hit grabs where we're just trying to make some big social circle that has a high price tag. One, you know me to know that I'm not putting some crazy price tag on this. And 2, this is going to be very, very small. So it is very limited in numbers so that we can really, truly walk with each other, support each other, encourage each other, and help each other level up. So head down to the show notes to check those opportunities out today. I'm super excited because networking and getting to know people is so important. In fact, everything that's coming about with the Wishmaker cohorts and the Wish Fulfillment cohorts and the Wishmaker Circle, all of that came about because of networking and the people that I've gotten to know over the years and their influence and impact in my life. And so when you surround yourself by next level elite people, it allows you to unpack yourself. That is why I am so, so excited to have Anthony on the show today. We hopped on a phone call and of course it's supposed to be like a 10-minute call. And do you think it lasted 10 minutes? No, it didn't. We kept talking, especially when mountain biking came up. I can't stop that conversation. But we were talking about so many different facets of business, of networking, and different strategies. I said, you know what, Anthony, I have to have you on the show. You have so much value to add to the conscious investor. And this is a topic that we don't really talk about on the show often enough. It is something that we do every single day, and it is paramount to building our business because businesses are built on relationships. So I am excited about this conversation that we're going to have. And I am absolutely certain that you are going to be so glad you stuck around to the end because the gems, they're just not going to stop. And I have confidence in that because I've spoken with Anthony a few times and I'm like, every time it's just a treasure trove. So let's welcome Anthony to the show. Anthony's super excited to have you on the Conscious Investor Podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. It's an honor. So let's dig in and see what we could bring these amazing folks that invest the time to listen to to your stuff because I know it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't like eavesdropping on really great conversations that are designed to serve? Like, that
Yeah,
works
if
out
we're
really
if
well.
we're being honest, we're all eavesdroppers, right? In some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, exactly. So you and I were talking off air. I don't like putting anybody in a box at all, and I don't like putting wishes in a box. So I want to lead you in with the question of all questions. What do you do, and how did you get started?
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, what I ultimately do is I help people create more freedom. And what that means is that, we all go into business or, we're all trying to make more money, but there's always something behind the money. It's never about the money. And what I found is that people are focused on the money and they're not focused enough on what the purpose is. And I know that's a phrase that gets beat into the ground, but if you think about what does that really mean, very few of us have thought about that in a deep way to understand what it truly means to us. So if you ask 10 people what they truly want, probably 9 of them won't really know. There might be one that says, yeah, I know exactly what I want. And so what I've sort of done and been able to do through my own sort of trial and error over the years of being in business for myself is taking the different things that I have proven out in my own businesses, the lessons I've learned, and bring them to other people so they can learn from my mistakes, learn from my wins, and ultimately help them in their businesses and their lives to grow both personally and professionally in a way that leads them to more freedom. And so I think at the end of the day, it's about freedom. And there's lots of ways to get there, right? And it was not always easy for me. My journey was, we talked a little bit about this offline, but or off air, or whatever you say these days. Cause I say offline and I'm thinking we don't ever go offline anymore. It's like we go from
Right.
here to Zoom or to Riverside or whatever it is. But off air, we were talking, and it's like, very, very few times, it's very rare that you set something in motion and it goes directly on that path that you think it's going to go, right? There's usually a lot of different twists and turns in the road. And for me, my journey started in the corporate world and I just wanted to be successful I wanted to be a pharmaceutical sales rep. And so I made my way into that whole arena and did pretty well. But I just felt like something was missing. And I thought it was the money. I was like, hey, if I just make more
Mhm,
money, I'll be happy in
mhm.
this world. And so I found out about medical device sales, and it's another step up. Got a job selling medical devices for Johnson and Johnson. Did really well there, and it still felt the same. It was just like there's something's missing. And what I found was missing was a couple things. It was my own autonomy. So being able to just kind of, make my own decisions, do what I want when I want, that kind of thing. Be able to experience the residual effect of the effort that I put in, which was not part of that whole compensation plan. But the biggest part was not really being able to see the effect I was making on people's lives. And I found that out a little bit later, and I'll kind of get into that. But basically, that journey sort of came to a screeching halt for a number of reasons. One was it was starting to become very stressful because every year, in order to make the same amount of money, I had to work harder because that's the way that sales are in a corporate environment typically. And that's why you see people jumping around to different companies because they maximize the compensation plan, then they move on to another company, right?
Oh, wow.
And so that's how they get around it. And so jumping jobs and stuff like that became very common. It wasn't a big deal, wasn't a negative because managers knew they were getting good reps just because they're trying to make more money. And so it got more difficult. And as that sort of as I sort of continued on that path, it was all about like, okay, what's Anthony doing? They're having regional managers ride with me and like the numbers aren't there. And I'm telling them they're coming. And then they ride with me. They're like, hey, you're doing everything right. But they're riding me so hard. And so there was all that stuff going on in my mind. And then it was like, the reality of like it just being a lot harder to make the kind of money that I wanted to make. And the impact was, the whole impact thing too. So one day a friend of mine came to me and said, hey, if you ever get tired of, doing what you're doing, my brother and I are doing some cool stuff with foreclosures and cleaning them out, basically. So he was like, "Yeah, make about $1,000 a day." I was like, "Well, that sounds pretty good, but I don't know about the cleaning part," you know. And and so one day I just said, "You know what? Fine. Like let's just do this. Show me what's going on." So I got involved in that business, and that business started to take off. And when it did, I saw my income. I was getting to a point where I was going to replace my income at my corporate job. And so one day I just decided I was done in the corporate world. And so I left. And I left in a way that it just felt like I was going on this new journey that I was being led by like a higher power. Like God was telling me, you know what? You're on the right path. Everything's going to be okay. Because even though I was replacing my income, I still was kind of scary, right? I'd never been in business on my own and didn't really know what was coming. But I thought, you know what? It couldn't be any worse than what I'm dealing with here. And at least I'll have more freedom, for the most part. I mean, we all know we work harder in our own businesses, but the
Right.
benefits come worth it, right?
So
Yeah.
true.
So I took that business and I grew it. So we started in Missouri and we expanded and I put my brother in charge there of that branch. I expanded to Los Angeles, where another brother of mine lives, and put him in charge of that branch. And then I moved to Arizona from Missouri to expand there. So I had 3 different states that we were expanded in. And during that time, the foreclosures were just like hitting the market. It was during the crash in 08, 09. So we were really busy. That business grew to a very substantial amount of income every year. And then that same friend came to me and said, "Hey, I want to take you to a marketing event." And yeah, he took me. So Dan Kennedy, right? He took me to a Dan Kennedy event. And I started hearing these people talk about how they were making all this money teaching people how to better their lives and how to do different businesses. And I was like, man, I could do that. And so I took that service-based business that I'd gotten into and turned that into a training business. And so I was training people how to do the foreclosure cleanout business in a way that I had discovered to make it very profitable. So I was running it like a business, not just like, hey, we're just getting these work orders and we're just doing whatever. I had it all the way down to where to squeeze the most profit out. Where could where to look for, other opportunities, how to create relationships. Right? We talk about relationships, how to build relationships with the people that are sending work. All that stuff I took and I packaged up and I trained a lot of thousands of people came through that program. And there were people, I mean, attorneys, loan officers, real estate agents, you name it. People were coming through the program because everybody's losing their income, right? It was hard for everybody. And this is kind of coming back full circle. That is when I started receiving these messages about, hey, Anthony, you helped save my home. You helped save my marriage. And all these messages, I've got hundreds of them still. And I was hooked. That was the thing. It was like the impact that I was looking for. It just filled that gap and that void
Mhm.
was filled. And ever since then, I've been hooked on that. And so even though that business went away, I've taken all those skills and continued to refine and hone them and help people in their businesses over the years up until today. And that was, 2000, I started in 2007. So, I've been at this now for quite a while, and probably internet years probably equivalent to like dog years. I think, it's like
I
times
think
7
so.
you're in because how fast
Yeah.
things move, right? So it's interesting because the you just don't know. If you were to tell me, Anthony, this was going to be this way, and 17 years from today, I would have been like, "There's no way," and because I didn't see that. It was not even. It wasn't even on my vision board, right? So it was nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found, and so that business. The reason why that business didn't survive is because, and you hear this a lot. I found out over the years as I share my story that business fell apart because the person I went into business with ended up, for lack of a better phrase, screwing me over. And the way that happened was I was sitting in my home office one day and all of a sudden I heard my wife screaming. Like she was just, never heard her scream like that before. And I went out there and she was holding my son who was like 16 months old and he was blue, not breathing, having a seizure. And I was just like, oh my God, what's happening here? And I grabbed him just out of my reaction, my just normal reaction, just grabbed him and I started doing CPR on him. And I couldn't get him to breathe, which I can't even tell you to this day. It just like, when I think about that, it's like probably the worst or the most traumatic experience I've ever had. Um, if you can imagine giving a 16-month-old CPR, it's, I don't recommend it for anybody, but thank God that he's like, hey, you know what? Grab him, just start going to work. So I don't even know how much time went by, but it was like, it got to the point where he wasn't breathing. I thought seriously that we lost him. And, I heard this voice and the voice said, Anthony, just turn him on his side one more time. And I turned him on his side and he took a breath. And I was
Oh my
like,
gosh.
thank God. I was like, wow, okay. But still in my head, I'm going, is he okay? Is he going to be okay? And right then EMS came in and they put him onto hooked him up to oxygen, all those, the different monitors, put him on the bed, wheeled him out, put him in the ambulance. And we followed the ambulance to the hospital. And then when we got to the hospital, we have a dog at home, and the friend that I was in business with at the time, he lived not too far from me in the same neighborhood. So I asked him to let my dog out, and I found out later that he went into my office and saw my whiteboard where I had a whole new business mapped out, and he didn't like that. So what happened, to make a long story short, is he came up with this big fabricated story where the Secretary of State needed us to amend our agreement. He put together this document, sent it over to me, said, I need you to sign it. Wasn't even thinking about it. I'm worried about my son. Sign it. And effectively what it is, gave away half of my part of the business back to him.
Oh my gosh.
So this amazing business that I like put everything into building, half of what I was used to bringing home was gone in an instant. And so, of course, it fell apart. It was really hard for a while. And I mean, literally, I would, we talked about vulnerability earlier.
Yeah.
And that's why I tell the story, because I know there's somebody out there listening right now that probably has experienced something similar, and I want them to know that it's going to be okay, right? But I literally cried myself to sleep, was on the floor, like just not wanting to move, anything. And meanwhile, I have a son and a wife that depend on me. So one day I heard another voice, and that voice said, Anthony, get your crap together. It's like, you have all these skills that I have given you. And yes, you're going through a challenging time right now, but you have learned all these valuable skills that you're going to be okay. So I got back in the game. Like, I'm starting another business. And I was part of this high level mastermind back in the day. And some of you listening may remember this mastermind, but it's Digital Marketer War Room. And I had some good friends that I'd met through there. One of them heard what happened. He came to me and was talking about LinkedIn. He's like, hey, we're doing some cool stuff on LinkedIn. And at first I was like everybody else that thinks that LinkedIn's a place to go get a job or post your resume and all that stuff. And I told him, I was like, I'm not looking for a job. I'm trying to start another business. And he's like, just hear me out. And so kind of jumped in and dabbling with the platform and took some of the things that I had already kind of developed and adjusted them and put it on the platform. And I came up with a new offer. I was unknown in this niche, had no testimonials, no fancy marketing, none of that stuff that people tell you have to have these days, right? It was just literally a good offer. It was good messaging, and it was good email. And my phone, this thing right here that people don't use as a phone anymore, usually. But here's what happened. The first 30 days, I brought in $60,000 in sales. And this particular offer came with another 60 on the back end, plus equity in the business. And so I was like really excited because it's like, hey, everything's going to be all right. And but then there was this voice like, well, maybe just got lucky. Because in marketing and business, sometimes you do get lucky like that, right?
Uh-huh.
So I went out again the next 30 days and it was the craziest thing, exact same numbers. So then I knew I had something that was duplicatable. And then at that point, people were asking me, what are you doing? How are you doing it? And that's kind of started everything off with what we do today. And, I'm now involved with LinkedIn marketing. I do a lot of that. I do a lot of email marketing, webinar marketing, how to look at businesses and see where the holes are and bring more profit out of the business. So all those things came from all these experiences that I had. And so when people, they hear my story, they'll say, well, what would you have changed if you go back and change it? And it's like, I went, as painful as it was going through, I wouldn't change it because if I changed anything, everything changes, right? And
Uh-huh.
that butterfly effect, I'm where I'm supposed to be. And I didn't know at the time, but now when I look back, I can literally connect the dots on why I went through what I went through, why I decided to move from Arizona back to Kansas City, Missouri. I mean, all these things, because through that whole story, and we don't have time for me to share it now, all these crazy things happened that were supposed to happen, including getting my daughter, who I didn't mention this, I don't think, maybe, but both my kids are adopted. And that was my choice. So Jill and I, we have no clue if we could have biological children or not. But I was adopted. And so when it came time to have a family, we decided to adopt. Miles was our first. We adopted him at birth. But Daisy came along a number of years later because we had moved back to Kansas City. If we hadn't moved back to Kansas City, I didn't go through all that, we wouldn't have Daisy today. So it's when you can kind of look back and see that, it gives you hope, right? Because then you're like, okay, there was a reason for this. And also there's a silver lining that comes with every difficult experience you go through. And no matter what it is, I know some people hear the story like, well, you know what? Yeah, that sounds hard, but I'm going through something even harder. And you know what? It's okay. The point is that there is a reason. You can always find something that you could take and learn from or be grateful for along the way.
And it's also not a comparison, and we're always either coming out of a challenging situation or heading into a challenging situation. And there's just this very slim margin between those two sectors in life. And if you are an unconscious investor, this is not you. I know it. But maybe you're listening for the first time and you really don't know what a conscious investor is and such. And so what you might not realize is that when we're actually engaged in living life, we're throwing ourselves in those margins where like they're very thin margins between going through the storm and just having the recovery period. And it's good. It's really good.
Yeah,
I
if you can hold on, just hold on and like have that hope and keep on keeping on. And thank God my grandmother, I was raised by my grandparents and thank God I had them because they taught me just to be very persistent and determined. But if you can hold on, things are always, it's like they say, it's like what you're wanting is just on the other side of the challenge, or there's a million different ways that people say it. But if you can just hold on and weather that storm, like you said, man, there's so many great things on the other side of it.
is so you were asking, or we were talking about the growth summit before, we hit record. And you're right. Like every time you have an event of that scale, there's always that question, like, do I want to do this again? Like, what was I thinking? And then every single time, there are always so many great things that it's the pain. It's no different. Like having kids and birthing kids and raising kids, even if you didn't birth them, raising kids. Oh my gosh, right? It's like you're going to face the storms regardless, but it's better to face them. There's so many things. I didn't want to stop you because you were like everything you're saying was so good. And conscious investor, I know this is relatable. I just know it is because you're in life, and many of you get the weekly newsletters that I send out, and so like, wow, yeah, having some business partner things, that's real. If it hasn't happened to you, it probably will. That's unfortunate. I'm not saying that because I'm being pessimistic. It's just the odds are ever in your favor that this will happen. And I say ever in your favor because just like what's happened to you, Anthony. It's like all these things can be repurposed in our life to produce really good things, but we have to determine in our hearts that that's what we're going to do with them. So that's where I have so many questions about, like getting into more of what you do and everything, but I want to go back to like the beginning, right? Just so that we have a baseline. What is what are actually, because I'm going to have three things: success, freedom, and money. Like, how would you define those for yourself? Now you've been through all of these things on your timeline. So what is the definition with this version of yourself of success, freedom, and money?
Yeah. So I would say, and let me just be completely transparent. So for any of you that get to know me more, like, Julie's really getting to know who I am, I'm very transparent. And, I'll just tell you, like, I wasn't always, I have a big heart to serve, but I wasn't always like, I talked about the impact that I wanted to make, and that was a missing element, but it wasn't always like I knew what that was. In the beginning, it was about money. It was
Yep.
like, I just want to make a bunch of money. Even when I
Yeah.
got into my business, like, I want to make a bunch of money. And then as soon as I saw the impact that was being made, everything shifted. And I was like, all the webinars I was doing, all the presentations I was doing shifted, and it became more value driven versus, hey, you're just trying to sell a product or a program or a service. And I started working with other people on how to shift their stuff like that. And it just makes a
Mhm.
huge difference in your business. And you stand out so far from the competition because so many people miss that one thing, the relationship. And that's the only way that you'll have a sustainable business that's successful. So for me these days, as I've evolved and kind of been on my journey and went through all the different experiences, success to me today is blessing others with whatever I can do to pour into them and to help them to elevate, whether it be spiritually, in their business, maybe personally, anything that I could share that's helped me. I want to bring that to others because even if it might not fit, this person, it might fit for this person, right? And so I just wanted to share that experience. And also, success to me, you can't see it on the screen here, but I've got a picture of my family behind me. I always also have that there on purpose because it's about them too. I want my kids to grow up knowing that in a world where a lot of people feel like if you're doing well in business, you're screwing somebody over, that they can see how I treat people and that you could do very well by doing the right thing as much as you possibly
Mhm.
can. Right? I'm not saying I'm perfect because I'm not. Like, I make mistakes, but I want them to see you could treat people well. If you make a mistake, make it right. Those kinds of things that I feel are, as we're kind of evolving as a society, those really important things that are getting lost are getting brought back with the next generation. Because I feel like there's, with different people's views of politics and, whatever it is, I won't get into all those things, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Everybody's at odds with everything. What if we just like learn to love and respect each other, bring that into our businesses, bring that into our personal lives, bring that into, our spirituality. If we could do that, I think we're going to not only be successful ourselves, but we're going to have other people be able to see that, witness it, emulate it. And then, of course, if you're doing those things right, the money, to get to the money part, the money is going to be a byproduct of that stuff, especially in business. Like, you can't help but to succeed if you just treat people well. You just do what's right, make a mistake, fix it, make up for it. Nobody expects you to be perfect. If they do, maybe there's something missing on the front end of you bringing that person to you. But for the most part, we're human beings. We're reasonable, right? So
Yeah.
make a mistake, just admit it, make up for it, and move along. And so I think that for me these days, that's the success, the money, and of course freedom. Right? You said freedom. So freedom comes from, I think, doing the right thing, but also putting the right processes and systems in place as you start to scale your business and things like that that afford you the time to be with your family, afford you the time to do the other things outside of what you do, hopefully passionately in your business.
Uh, that's so good. That's so good. You were talking about, when you had that disconnect, right? And you're making great money, you're being well compensated, And it's what I call success without satisfaction. It's like there's a disconnect, and I have the appearance of success, and yet I'm not feeling that deep in my heart and in my soul. And I'm wondering, because I think that that is relatable to a lot of people having that feeling, but what did that actually have you ever considered what that actually felt like to you? And then also then dovetailing that into that process, right? Because it is. And so I just also want to commend you on that being willing to go through the refining process of I have this feeling, so I know that there's something else, and you were forged by fire. And so you went through it. So it's almost one of those you were exactly where you needed to be. You were shown something, and then you were able to be refined. But what did that feel like? What did that disconnect feel like? And how did you wrestle with that? Like, what gives? Like, I want more here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it I think for me it came when I had the money. So when I had the money, it was like still um something was missing. And then like literally when as soon as I started receiving positive feedback, I was like, that's the part. And when you put the two together, you realize that it's you can have the money without the impact for a while, you know, but internally, like if you don't fix that, eventually you're going to have other things to deal with. And it could be in the form of what the negative stress brings to you in your life. It could be health issues, right? It could be whatever it might be. Like there was a time um, when I was so overwhelmed before I left the corporate world where I started getting social anxiety, like having panic attacks. And for people that don't know what that's like, it feels like you're having a heart attack and you don't really know what's going on. And the scary thing is, if you have it bad enough, like I did, it just happens. There's triggers and you don't know exactly what they are until you know. And
Wow.
you have to consciously work on those things. Still to this day, there's certain things like if I, right before I go on stage, for example, I have a whole thing that I do. It's like, I got to remember it's not about me. And I go through this, like I am there to serve. The spotlight's not on me, and I use it and it works every time now. And I don't take credit for that. I learned that from a good friend, but it was very helpful. And but I think, to answer your question, it's more about, when you have a lot and something feels like it's still missing. And like you said, the success without satisfaction, and you will get to that point if you don't have those things aligned. It's only a matter of time. And it's up to you, like you said, to figure out what to do with it. I'm always like, look, if if I'm gonna take somebody's money, I'm gonna be darn sure that I could deliver a positive result, because I don't
Mhm.
want that pressure. And I'm also not gonna take somebody's last bit of money. If somebody's like, okay, I'm really counting on you, I'm like, whoa, hold on a minute. How about we put together a plan and you can go follow this plan, get in a better position. And then when you're there, I'll feel a lot better about us collaborating or working together in that capacity. But again, I think I might be going on a long tangent here, but I think it comes down to like, how do you serve people? Like, what does that look like? Because you know, if you don't have like a true value to give to folks, you're probably going to end up in that situation where it's like you don't see the impact, and it's going to be you're winning, they're losing, or for whatever reason you just don't feel that alignment, if you will.
Oh, this resonates so much. I was just telling Super Rad Steve yesterday because I'm in a transition with my business right now, literally real time at time of this recording, and I'm like, I've released a lot of clients, a lot of coaching clients because I'm transitioning, and that means that I'm not coaching the way I usually coach, and I'm like, this is so painful because I love being in that room and supporting people and seeing the transformation take place and being able to like co-create with them and help them and support them. And that's my rocket fuel. So right now I am having to navigate like, it's coming, girl. It's coming. Just hang
You're,
tight. You're gonna, like, but there's that dissonance when you're not being connected to that like it's not a product, but it's like this positioning in people's lives. It's like, oh gosh, this is painful.
yeah, and it really is like selfishly speaking, it's there's really nothing like that feeling. Like when you see somebody, the lights go on. Like if you're looking at somebody
Oh my
and you could
gosh.
tell the lights go on, the light bulb goes off, and you're like, they now get it, and everything changes, right? It's like
Life changes
so
forever.
rewarding. Yeah,
Forever. Like literally. And bam, your life is completely it's like when you become a parent, like, your life will never be the same. That's what my dad told me in the best way. He's like, "You'll never stop worrying." And, I'm like, here I am, middle-aged and everything. He's telling me all this, like, and so it's like, like, somebody's life is forever changed. There's no
yeah.
price tag for that, for the opportunity that is. But you and I, like, there are some of us so it's also I wanna encourage you, conscious investor, that your zone of genius could be different than mine and Anthony's, right? Where we were created to support people very specifically in these ways as leaders, servant leaders, teachers, that type of role. And so naturally, that's going to just be rejuvenating. You might be, more inclined to be programming computers and writing code in the privacy of your own little space where nobody else is around. And that could, that code's doing cool stuff. Like you're going to
Yeah.
have your own place that's going to be rejuvenating to you. So don't take this as like there's not just one way to have that. It's learning what it is for you.
That's a really great point. And I'm glad you brought that up because you're right. Not everybody has the same path. And I think that's another area, Julie, where we get a little bit confused as human beings, right? We look at somebody else's path and we're like, start comparing ourselves to them, or yeah, but this or that. We can't do that. We're running our own race. And so if you're a computer programmer, if you want to figure out what value that brings, you need to think about it that way, right? Like you said, it's doing some great stuff out there. What is it doing in the lives of the people that this code is they're using? And you can do that for anything that you do. So yeah, I encourage people to really think deeply about that, because if you focus on that part of it, you can't help but to do your job better, to do your business better, to be a better parent, right? To be a better husband, spouse, wife, partner, coach, whatever it might be. That's the kind of stuff that helps you to get better. If, again, you're here to serve, and I believe we all were created to serve, just some of us haven't been woken up to it yet. Some of us need a little bit of a shake. Right?
It's so true. Anthony, I'm looking at the clock and I knew the time was going to fly by and we haven't even scratched the surface. So I'm going to ask you, and I don't normally put people on the spot, but I think that it'd be really fun because I want to see it's so funny. I love that I'm just like on the fly. Well, we're going to have to shift gears a little bit. And I want to provide an opportunity for you, conscious investors. So know that I am putting Anthony on the spot right now. And that's not really a polite thing to do, but I think it's gonna be okay. um, I'm thinking it would be fun because we didn't really get into how you practically, tangibly serve people and support them. And I know that there is a conscious investor listening right now that has that within them. They just need some of the savvy. They just need that little missing link. And I think that what you offer could be very helpful. So, what I'm thinking is that maybe we put together a workshop that so you can present slides and people can ask questions. Is that something you're game for?
I would be totally happy to do that for you. Something that I actually enjoy doing, and am actually prepared to do. So
Okay.
we can absolutely make that happen.
All right, we're going to find time on the calendar. And at the time of this recording, I don't know when that is going to be. So stay tuned, conscious investor, for that opportunity to come your way. Um, how can people get in touch with you? They're listening and they're inspired by, your struggle to success. You had success, struggle, success. Like you've kind of had it all. You've gone the whole gamut. So that's inspiring. They want to connect up with you. What's your favorite place?
Yeah. So you can always look me up on LinkedIn. That's an area that you'll find me. And you can email me too. So Anthony at anthonysimonie.com. Very easy to reach me there if you've got questions or, just want to bounce ideas off or whatever. Like I'm open to this audience, especially since Julie, you're involved. I know that you attract a really special kind of person
They're the
that
best.
would be great conversation. So
Love it. Conscious investor, don't be a stranger. So make sure you reach out to Anthony. And what are we connected on the socials also? So make sure you head over, follow at Happy Julie Holly on Instagram. I'm actually going to be like kind of going that direction a little bit more. And then make sure that we are connected on LinkedIn because there is going to be there are some changes coming to the show. So that there are going to be some changes that are taking place even on the social platforms. So make sure we're connected over on LinkedIn because different content will be on LinkedIn than is available on Instagram. And I am so amazingly excited to serve you and to support you in so many same, but maybe I wouldn't say better. So I don't know. I don't know how we're going to phrase that because we're ratcheting things up, and I just can't wait to be able to show up with clarity for you and to support you. So make sure you go follow on those socials. And until next time, remember, life is a limited time offer, so live it really well.